All right. Well, treasures are something that we are willing to protect at the cost of anything else. The things you treasure are something that you are willing to protect at the cost of anything else. And so something that you treasure might be actually worthless to other people, but to you, it means the world. I can think of back in the day when I was a kid, I had my treasure. The thing that I valued the most in the world was my Nerf Blast-O-Matic. How many of y'all had the Blast-O-Matic? We had one. The Blast-O-Matic was so powerful, Nerf had to discontinue making it. Every Nerf war, I won. Because it wasn't using the spring action to shoot the ball out. It was using the amount of power you push into it to shoot people. And so it would leave welts on people's arms and legs, and it was glorious. No more of these balls just dying as they get out there. Like, this thing is hitting people in the head. This is like paintball before paintball, but inside your own house. It was fantastic. It was lethal, so they stopped making it. But it was my favorite toy. And my parents are here this morning. Mom and Dad, hi. They didn't know I was going to call them out here. They did what parents do, and they said, let's have a garage sale. Not a bad thing. No, they didn't put it in without my knowledge. No, they gave me the option. And this is the first garage sale I've ever been a part of. And I'm like, oh, people just give you money for your junk? So I just put everything in my bin, including my Blast-O-Matic. And I specifically remember who bought my Blast-O-Matic. Some random biker, motorcyclist, came through and got the Blast-O-Matic, and he put it in his motorcycle and drove off like Terminator, driving down the road. And in the moment, I remember seeing it go down the road, and I start running after going, no, I want it back. I made such a bad decision at that moment, because it's not that I treasured this. This was my treasure, not just because of it's a piece of plastic. It doesn't matter. But I still, to this day, miss my Blast-O-Matic, because it wasn't just a piece of plastic. It is my childhood. And what would you not give to get your childhood back? Now, for you, it might not be the Nerf Blast-O-Matic. For you, it might be your baseball card collection, or your comic book collection, or your Nintendo, the original, or the Sega. These are all actually my other things that I have treasured. I don't know what yours is. Mine are very specific, as you can tell. We all treasure something. What is it that you treasure, that you value, that you would give anything to get back? If you said, if I had that, I would have everything. That's your treasure. But how do you know if your treasure is worth protecting? How do you know if it's worth a biker paying $5 for, or if you should have charged $150,000 or so for it? How do you know? And so today, the title of my sermon is Follow the Money. Follow the money, because if you follow the money, you will find your treasure. And when we follow the money in our passage here today, the very first thing that we're going to learn is that you're going to discover that there is a treasure that rots. So the first thing we learn is that there is a treasure that rots. Verse 19, do not lay up for yourselves treasures on earth where moth and rust destroy and where thieves break in and steal. And so Jesus kicks off this part of his Sermon on the Mount, giving very practical advice, saying, don't make bad business investments. Don't invest in things that are ultimately going to go away. That's what treasures on earth are. It's like investing in Blockbuster. Oh man, was that a bad business investment? Or Polaroid, going, it's the physical pictures that will last forever, right? These are bad business investments, and Jesus is saying, don't do that. These things are going to go away. The moth, this small little insect that just eats away and devours all of the fabric. It can destroy one of the most expensive pieces of fabric, and this is where many people in the ancient world put their money, was in their clothes. They would have one or two. That's how you were deemed whether you had the money or not. But the moth, the small little insect, is going to take it all away. Or rust. Rust can corrode the strongest of metals. And you go, how could this metal ever be destroyed, and all of a sudden it's brittle and it falls apart. And if it's not a bug, if it's not rust, it is now people who are going to take everything from you, where thieves come in and rob you. And so his point here early on is nothing is safe. Nothing is safe in the ancient world. Like everything and everyone is coming for your stuff. Whether it be bug, if it's not a bug, it's the air. If it's not the air, it's a person. And we would say, us in our modern times, well, good thing we have insecticide. Good thing we have rust-proof paint. Good thing we have our Ring cameras and burglar alarms. We are safe, and we're tempted and lulled into believing that we're above that we're impervious to that. Oh, how wrong we are. Like, even if those things are still protecting us here on this earth, all of a sudden, those things that we value, the treasures that we have, just start disintegrating with inflation. And you've said, oh, at this age, I'm going to have Easy Street. And then inflation comes, and someone just robs you, and you have to say, I'll push that back another 10 years. That's when Easy Street might be. Someone is coming for your treasure. Someone is stealing from you. Nothing lasts. Like, if your treasure is your memory, well, that doesn't last. I can't remember what happened yesterday, right? If your treasure is your pictures and you're going, yeah, of course Polaroids go out, but that's why we have our digital age and we upload things to the cloud. Someone hacks that. Someone forgets to hit save. Someone deletes. All of your memories are gone. Nothing lasts. If your treasure is in people's approval of you, well, that goes and sways with the wind. If your treasure is in your looks, give it 30 years. If your treasure is in your family, kids leave, people fight, people get divorced, they break up, grandchildren squander your inheritances. Like, nothing lasts. And I'm sorry to be a downer. This is like the most depressing part of the sermon. It only gets worse. No. But this is Ecclesiastes. All is meaningless is the theme of Ecclesiastes. All is vanity. Everything's just a chasing after the wind. It's pointless. Psalm 39 says it this way, surely everyone goes around like a mere phantom. In vain they rush about, heaping up wealth without knowing whose it will finally be. Oh. Psalm 49, do not be overawed when others grow rich, when the splendor of their houses increases, for they take nothing with them when they die. Their splendor will not descend with them. Whew. You can't take it with you. We all deep down know that. And yet, we desperately try. We desperately try to take it with us, or at least give it to our generation behind us. And so many of us hear a message like that you can't take it with you, and to hear about the greed and all this, and we go, oh, I hope he's listening to this. I will make sure to send this sermon to them. They need to hear this. And this is the very, very dangerous part about greed and materialism. Greed and materialism always mask themselves to make you think it's someone else's struggle, but not yours, right? Like, we would all agree that greed and materialism is deadly. Like when companies put safety protocols lower on the priority list than profit and say, yeah, this is poisoning the water, but we need to make a profit, we would go, absolutely no, that is horrendous. And yet no one seems to have a problem with greed. When you go and you confess sins to one another, you don't confess greed, do we? We confess lust because you know it. You confess murder or saying raka, right? You're saying evil thoughts or mean things to one another because you know it. But no one seems to think that they struggle with greed. Everyone else struggles with greed, but not us. This is why greed, even though it's one of the 7 deadly sins, I think it might be the deadliest because it's hiding in plain sight and no one struggles with it. This is why Jesus says in Luke 12, watch out. Watch out, be on your guard. Why would you have to watch out and be on your guard unless it's hiding from you? It's masking itself. It's like a chameleon masking itself from you. Watch out. It is scary how this stuff can be rotting. And why would Jesus say that? Is because greed doesn't just rot your stuff. Your stuff doesn't just rot. Greed and materialism rot your soul to where it changes you to say, this is all that matters. These things are all that I care about. And it changes you like the frog in the kettle slowly over time to where you don't even notice that these are the things that you're caring about here on this earth. And so this is something Jesus is telling us to watch out for. Now, let's be clear. Jesus is concerned not about our possessions, but about our attitude towards our possessions. Does that make sense? Like it is not wrong for you to have possessions. The scriptures praise the ant for storing up in the summer so that he can eat in the winter, right? So it's not wrong to actually have things. It's not wrong to enjoy the finer things in life. God is not kind of pushing you towards that ascetic lifestyle to just say, be boring, never have anything nice, right? What Jesus is talking about, what Jesus is concerned with, it's not about if you own possessions, it's if your possessions own you. Does that make sense? It's not about if you own possessions, it's whether your possessions own you. And how do you know if your possessions own you? Are you willing to give them up? Or do they have control over your life? And that's when we come to our second point here, that treasures that last. And so verse 20 says, but lay up for yourselves treasures in heaven. Lay up for yourselves treasures in heaven. So the first one was dealing with bad business deals. And so, don't invest in bad things. You should invest in Bitcoin or something like that. No. Nope, not Bitcoin. A little bit better than Bitcoin. Heaven. Lay up for yourselves treasures in heaven. How many of y'all have seen this billboard on I-35? Have y'all seen this billboard for heaven? Going down I-35, going north. It's around like 17th Street there, over by George's. And it says, where are you going? Heaven or hell? Do y'all love this? Every time I drive by, I go, I want to call that number. And I actually thought about it, like, for the sermon, I should call the number and talk to them about this and hear what they have to say about heaven or hell. But the description of heaven here with the clouds and the shining, it's just so stereotypical. You're like, is that heaven? Is this the cartoon version of heaven that you put on these billboards that are across the nation? This isn't just Waco, by the way. If you've driven around for a while, these billboards are everywhere. So someone's put some money into this saying, this is heaven. Now, if that's what heaven is, then no wonder we struggle with it. Like, no wonder we struggle with our options between amassing millions and millions of dollars here on this earth where I can have a mansion and nice cars and kind of have the life, or die and hope that one day I can live in the clouds and hope that my good deeds on this earth will somehow outweigh my bad deeds enough to at least get me a small 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom condo that maybe can have room for a refrigerator. But if you are like me and you actually are honest about your own sin and go, there's no way I'm earning even that in heaven. Given if I'm honest about myself, like laying up treasures in heaven has not been on my priority list yet. What am I going to get when I get there? And so, no wonder we're going, yeah, I'm going to go with the more likely option in building my life and my kingdom right here and right now. Of course, I will lay up treasures here on this earth. It is more likely, it's more attainable. The other one, the math doesn't add up. This one, I can see and it makes sense. Also, people in Jesus' day, when they were talking about heaven, they weren't talking about the future. Think about that. When they're talking about heaven, they're not talking about what happens when you die. They're not talking about a realm that you know one day you have to wait until you get to heaven, as this picture seems to be implying. No, the treasure that they have, that they are laying themselves up for, is a treasure that they can have right now. That changes how we view this passage, doesn't it? Heaven, let me say it this way, heaven isn't a realm, it's a reality. Heaven isn't a realm that you're wanting to get to one day. It's a reality that is going to be breaking into earth right now. Jesus wants heavenly treasure for you right now. And so in a sense, it's like Jesus is saying, let me give you the get rich quick scheme. You can be rich, not one day, someday, if you amass enough Jesus brownie points with your Jesus Roth IRA. I can't say that, Roth IRA, so you can say, hey, see, I deal in this realm a lot, where one day you will have millions and millions of dollars. What Jesus is saying is that, no, you can be rich right now. You can lay up these treasures in heaven right now. And how do you do that? Well, the Matthew part of the Sermon on the Mount doesn't actually spell that out for us. Luke's account of the Sermon on the Mount does, though. What does laying up treasures look like? In Luke 12 says, sell your possessions and give to the poor. Provide purses for yourselves that will never wear out, a treasure in heaven that will never fail, where no thief comes near and no moth destroys. Where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. And so what Jesus says here in this Luke account is, laying up yourself treasure in heaven is giving to the poor. It's not by laying up and hoarding things for yourselves. It's by giving it away to someone else, to the person who needs it. And what he's saying by doing this here is that you're putting your treasure into this heavenly realm right here now. You're putting it into an alternate reality that is an alternate kingdom, that heaven is now going to be breaking into this earth. This is an investment in another kingdom, in something that is eternal, something that is beautiful, that is good, right, and true. I mean, the scriptures talk about this all the time, that there's this reality. Haggai 1:6 says, you earn wages into a bag with holes in it. And what that is teaching us is there is a reality that when you give to no one, you get poorer. The more you hoard, the poorer you become. It's the theme that your treasure rots, that it disintegrates. There's this old quote, and I love it. It says, money is like manure. If you stack it up, it stinks. But if you spread it out, it makes things grow. It's a little rough around the edges. But it's so true. And if you've talked to anyone who is generous, they've seen this to be true. That when you hold on and hoard on, it disintegrates, it stinks. It rots your soul, it rots the people around you. But when you give it away, then you see things around you grow and life is coming out. This is what generous people know about the world. This is how God has made the world. And the words my and mine seem so innocent. Like the things that I have are mine. And every kid knows the word mine. No, that's mine, right? We as adults know that as well. But these two simple words are symptoms of a deeper disease that is infecting all of us. This airtight grip on the things of this world saying, no, this is mine. You can't have it. And this is where Basil the Great comes in with this quote that is going to destroy all of us. Get ready. What is yours? Who gave it to you so that you could bring it into life with you? When a man strips another of his clothes, he is called a thief. Should not a man who has the power to clothe the naked, but does not do so, be called the same? The bread in your pantry belongs to the hungry. The cloak in your wardrobe belongs to the naked. The shoes you allow to rot belong to the barefoot. The money in your vaults belongs to the destitute. You do injustice to every man and woman whom you could help, but do not. Whew. And so it's not just a good thing in the world to be generous. What Basil is teaching us here is that it's a matter of justice. It's not charity to be generous. It's a matter of justice that the people around us, it's owed to them. Does that make sense? Like, when we think of the phrase, what I have is mine, that is a very worldly way of thinking. Like, what I have is mine, that I've earned it, this is what I've earned. And as he said, what did you bring into this world? Everything's been given and is a gift. Yes, you may have worked hard to get to a point, but how did you have the cognitive faculties and the strength to do these things? You can see anything you have here is as a gift. Verse, all that I have is yours. These are two different ways of seeing the world. What I have is mine. Verse, all that I have is yours. And by yours, we mean, yes, O Lord, all that I have is yours, Lord. You've given me everything. Every good gift comes from the Father above. Like, this is all God's. But I also want you to see that yours doesn't just mean God's, it means our neighbors. That all that I have is yours. Because what does Jesus say in Matthew 25? That when you did it to the least of these, you did it for me. And so all that I have is yours. This is what Jesus is pushing us towards. Like, if we say mine is mine, I'll keep it, is one way of seeing the world. Or mine is yours, I'll share it. Can we say that second one? Oh, yes, you're right. We should do this together. Preacher should work through his sermon better. Here we go. Let's do. Let's do it all together. Mine is yours, I'll share it. Let's do it again. Mine is yours, I'll share it. And so when we say yours, I want you to believe, yes, it's the Lord's, but it's also the people around us who need it. That is what God is putting us towards. Like, that when we do say that mine is yours, I'll share it, that's when heaven breaks in now. That's when eternity breaks in now. And generous people are generous with their money, but they're generous with their words. They're generous with their time. They're generous with their concerns for one another. That's what generous people do. And if you've ever met a generous person, it almost feels like they're from another world. You're like, how are you not selfish? How do you not think about yourself all the time with all that you have? And the reason it feels like they're from another world is it's because they are. They've been to a far off distant country. They've tasted the good gifts and they're now bringing it back, bringing the riches back to us. And when we taste and we meet with these people, we go like, I want more of that. They're sharing everything. The love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, self-control. You're going, this is what heaven is. I can't get enough of that. That's laying up treasures here on earth, but from heaven. And so, how do you do that? How do you get to the point where you can be that type of person? You can be that type of generous person. That's when we get to our last point here. And that's to follow the money, find your treasure. Follow the money, find your treasure. Whether the realm is the church, whether it's banking, whether it's the political sphere, whether it's the academia, I encourage you to always follow the money. That leads you to what people care about. People can hide behind platitudes, they can hide behind different things, but if you see where people's money goes, and you go, oh, this is what you really care about. That's what we care about. Jesus said it a different way, I think a better way. Let's say in verse 21, he says, for where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. Where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. And so you can see what you give your money to correlates directly with what you treasure, what you value, where your heart is. And so if you spend hundreds and hundreds of dollars on makeup and beauty supply and clothes, then appearance is something we treasure. If you spend hundreds and hundreds of dollars on entertainment and all of the streaming services that just keep piling up and more and more and more, right? Then you treasure an escape. What is it that you treasure? This week, I want you to do an audit of your own bank account. Some of us are going, please don't do that. I don't even want to know. Some of us live that way. It's just like, I'd rather not know what's going on back there. I want to encourage you to open it up, as smelly as it might be, open it up and do an audit and go, where is my treasure? Where is my money going? And that'll tell me some things about what I actually value. Because you may not even know yet what is your treasure in life. And when we do that audit, we can see where you follow the money, you will find your treasure. Now our goal, though, is not just to find our treasure and to say, man, that's really misplaced. Our goal is to change our treasure from an earthly treasure to a heavenly one. And so how do you do that? How do you make that change? Well, let me tell this story about a guy named Dallas Willard. He's a pastor, and he shares this story about his son's stuffed animal. How many of y'all have had a stuffed animal? How many of y'all had a really sweet stuffed animal? Yes, and maybe your kids have one right now. How many of you kids have one now? Some of us are going, I don't want to tell people about it. I thought about bringing my kids' stuffed animals up here, but it was so private and so intimate. When you know your stuffed animal, you can't share that. Dallas's son had a stuffed animal named Sleepy Dog. Sleepy Dog was everything to his son. And like your stuffed animal, you slept with it all the time. The animal itself brought you comfort. It brought you peace. It centered you. It was an anchor to maybe a chaotic world, but you knew that when you went to bed, you had Sleepy Dog, or whatever your name for your stuffed animal was. Over time, when you sleep with Sleepy Dog every night for years upon years upon years, Sleepy Dog gets to be a little rough for wear, right? Sleepy Dog gets a little tattered, and the seams are coming apart, and cotton is falling out, and it really needs to be washed. It has not been washed in 8 years. In Dallas's wisdom, he says, it is time. If I wash Sleepy Dog, it will disintegrate. So Dallas says, I will get my son a brand new stuffed animal. Oh, he will love it. And so he takes Sleepy Dog while his son's at school, and he throws him in the trash. And then he goes to the store, and he brings him back this brand new dog that has like perfect condition, bigger. The stuffing is filled out, so it actually fits. He's a bigger kid now, can fit his body. And he's just waiting for his son to say, thank you, Dad. You're the best. What do you think his son said in that moment? He said he cried for days. He said he grieved for years. If you had a stuffed animal that you found as precious to you as that, and someone just took it away, what would you do? You would do the exact same thing. Because our treasures will not go that quickly. So if you identify your treasure and you say, cool, I'm moving on, it is not that easy. You've been cherishing it for years. And the only way to replace that treasure with something else is to find something that you treasure far, far more. To find something that treasures you far, far more. There's this beautiful passage in 1 Peter 2. He says, now to you who believe, this stone is precious. But to those who do not believe, the stone the builders rejected has become the cornerstone. Now to you who believe, this stone, it's referring to Jesus, is precious. To some people, Jesus is just another stone, just another guy. But to you who believe, he's precious. He's the most important thing in the world. That if you have him, you have everything. And if you're saying, well, I don't even know if I believe in Jesus, then I want to say, you need to believe in Jesus. But there are many who are so-called Christians who say they believe in Jesus, but he's not precious to them. That is not Christianity. Even the demons believe. And so how do we get to the point where we say, Jesus is precious to me? That if you took him away from me, I would cry for days, I would grieve for years. I've lost everything. How do you get to that point? It's when you see that Jesus sees you that way. That when you follow the money, you find Jesus' treasure. When you see what Jesus had to pay, what he gave up because of what he valued so much. If you follow his heart from the cross and go, he did that for me, what you learn is that when you follow the money, you realize you are his treasure. That you are the thing that he says, if I have you, I have everything. And I'm willing to give up heaven and earth to get you. And only when we realize that we say Jesus died and rose again, not just generically, but Jesus died and rose again for me, then we're willing to give up anything for him. Then we're willing to put the rest of the world on hold because we have that. Do you find him that precious to you? That's what Scripture is calling us to treasure him in this way, to treasure Christ more than anything in the world. And I love the translation lay up, where it says, lay up treasures in heaven. I love it because it makes me think of the basketball move, the layup. Paul, thanks for teaching me how to do it. The layup is the highest percentage shot in basketball. It's almost impossible to miss. I might find a way, but it's almost impossible to miss. That when you lay up, it is most certainly going in. It's easy, right? And when you lay up treasures, it's easy. The things that you actually value, it's easy to invest in. The opposite is true. The things you don't value, it's really hard to invest in. And so if your child says, Mom, Dad, in December, I really want to go to Santa's Wonderland. And you go, oh gosh, it's all the way in College Station. I gotta go. Okay, yep, but I love you. We'll do it. So you go to College Station and you pay an enormous amount of money to go see Christmas lights that you could drive through your neighborhood for. It's fine. Memories, great. But then you get there and then they upcharge you for parking. Then they upcharge you for every little thing. Like the drink is $25. The hot dog is $50. You're going, okay, let's get in line. Well, this line actually costs more money. It's $15 to stand in this line. And so you're just so angry by the end of the night that when you walk away, you're like, I just dropped $250 on this stupid thing, and I just hate the greedy nature of this whole enterprise. This is someone's story. I don't know. I may or may not ever go there again. I hated it. Because I didn't treasure it. Now, a couple months later, your child comes to you and says, hey, Dad, I want to do drum lessons. Because I treasure being a musician, done. Let's do it. And over 2 months' time, spent the same exact amount of money at Santa's Wonderland as I did on drum lessons. And to me, I was going, of course. Like, that's all you're going to charge me? I'll give you more. How much do you want, drum teacher? Because it was easy. It was a layup because I valued it. When you treasure something, it is easy to give your money to. So I don't know what your treasure is. It's probably not drum lessons. But whatever it might be, you give your money happily to the things that you treasure. And so what you realize is the things that we treasure, we're like, just take it. Just take my money. And so if you treasure Jesus, being generous is a non-negotiable. You're going like, if I love you, then of course I'm going to give it away. Like a tithe, 10%, of course, that's easy. And it's not easy for some of us if it's like a muscle. We haven't even started working out yet. You might have to work to get there. But at some point you start realizing like, generosity is just so good for the world. It's heaven breaking in. It's eternity breaking in that's the mirror. That's the floor. I'm going to give above and beyond. And I want to thank you again for this church giving above and beyond with this End Homelessness campaign. Like this is just a beautiful picture of you saying, what is mine is yours, O Lord. What is mine is yours, brothers and sisters here in Waco. I'll share it. And you have heaven breaking into this earth, shalom breaking into this earth right now. And so I want to encourage you this week to follow the money and find your treasure. Do the audit. I know it might be uncomfortable. See where your money goes. And then follow Christ's treasure and see how much he loves you. Follow what he's done for you. See that he treasures you. And you'll want to be able to give to things that actually last here in this world. Eternity can break into right now. Let's invest in it. Let me pray.